Here are your headlines from the future. Next week, you'll read, exhausted CIA chief can't fathom why Latin Americans keep trying to undo their own destruction. Poor CIA and State Department. Things never go their way, do they? Except for how they've all over most of the globe. But this is the good news episode, so let's focus on that. We begin with the big one that just happened. The people of Bolivia voted overwhelmingly to return Evo Morales' MAS party to power 1 year after a U.S.-applauded coup. And U.S.-applauded coup is the polite way of saying U.S.-backed coup. It's kind of like when you're in mixed company and you say your dog passed gas instead of ripped a gnarly one. The MAS party won over 52% of the vote, destroying the other candidates in what's called a democratic election. Unfortunately, here in the U.S., we don't really have the option to vote out the oligarchy, the pro-corporate heads. Instead, the only two parties that get any media attention and easy ballot access both represent the oligarchy. So the small country of Bolivia did something that is proven impossible in America. They voted out the ass. And it wasn't easy. To even secure another election, they had to endlessly protest and demand the return of their democracy in the face of violent right-wing thugs. So congrats to the people of Bolivia. Moving on to this year's next U.S.-backed coup failure, we go to beautiful Venezuela. Most of you know Venezuela has been the victim of America's endless efforts to destroy them. Currently, we have economic sanctions on them that have killed at least 40,000, probably more like 100,000, but who's counting over the past few years? But beyond that, there was the attempted invasion of Venezuela, which ended up looking like Three Stooges decided to become Blackwater mercenaries. Even American neoliberal media had to call out the ridiculous failed coup attempt in May of this year. The group of 60 armed men didn't even get to the mainland before they were spotted by fishermen. They were stopped by fishermen and then captured by the Venezuelan military, with 8 of them killed in a shootout. The mission and the funding was signed off on by self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido, who Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi both claim is the president of Venezuela, even though no one has ever voted for him to be president of Venezuela. You know what it's time to be really scared is when the Democrats and the Republicans all agree. That's the Halloween right there. When they come out from behind closed doors holding hands with wet spots on their pants saying, listen, we've discussed it and we all agree that Juan Guaido is the leader of Venezuela. Also, we agree that the government needs to give $4.25 trillion to Wall Street in the middle of a pandemic and a sack of shiny pennies to every other American. Let's hear it for bipartisanship. I'm telling you, next time you see them agree, you run for the hills. You run for the hills and you hide. Don't come out until you hear them fighting again. Anyway, there are a lot more details, but the overarching fact is that the American horse coup has utterly failed. The people of Venezuela are standing up to our efforts to steal their oil and bring them back into the neoliberal enslavement of Latin America. And for our third example of CIA butt-hurting, we go back to 2018 when Nicaragua defeated a right-wing U.S.-backed coup in which violent insurgents occupied universities, burnt down government buildings and pro-government activist homes, besieged police headquarters, and tortured and even killed Sandinistas. But it wasn't enough. Even with our Western media falsely claiming the violence was only on the side of the government, you know how I knew that their propaganda was bullshit? Because CNN, NPR, BBC, Fox News, MSNBC, all agreed. They all agreed. I'm telling you, when you see agreement, you kiss your loved ones and then you poop yourselves. Luckily, the people of Nicaragua saw through the violence and pushed back. and the US-supported coup never took hold. So that's the 3 recent historic moments of Latin American countries rejecting US-backed takeovers by right-wing heads. But I have a bonus good news item for you, and it just happened last week. Chile voted overwhelmingly in favor of rewriting the country's constitution to replace guiding principles imposed 4 decades ago under the military dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet. The 1980 Constitution was based on the neoliberal beliefs of a group of Chilean conservatives who studied under American economist Milton Friedman, aka the Dark Lord of Economics. I heard the theme of his 80th birthday party was the banality of evil. He's perhaps most famous for the quote, "Hey, look, if I just carry the 1 on this equation, 1 million people die." Isn't that exciting? What the Guardian article, though, fails to mention, probably intentionally, is that the coup that put the military despot Pinochet in power was manufactured and facilitated by our very own CIA to force out socialist Salvador Allende. And although authorities claim Allende killed himself during the coup, I think he did it the same way Jeffrey Epstein did, with a little help from his friends. Anyway, this constitutional rewrite never would have happened without large-scale protests by the Chilean people last year. The people took to the streets and demanded change. And the result is the CIA is watching all their hard work get wiped away. Sorry, CIA. Sorry, Mike Pompeo, Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, etc. The people of Latin America are just about done with your shit. Don't let the screen door hit you in the ass on the way out. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast. This is Redacted Tonight.
Let's roll!